The ideas expressed in City Club forums are those of the speakers and not of the City Club of Cleveland, IdeaStream Public Media, or their sponsors. Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream Public Media are made possible by PNC and the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, Incorporated.
Welcome to the City Club of Cleveland, where we are devoted to conversations of consequence that help democracy thrive. It's Wednesday, October 29th. I'm Lita Obertaz, Senior Vice President of Philanthropy at the Cleveland Foundation and proud member of the City Club Board of Directors. I'm pleased to introduce today's forum, which is part of the City Club's Authors in Conversation series, as well as the Eugene H. Friedheim Lecture, presented in partnership with our friends at the Center for Community Solutions. As a 113-year-old free speech forum, the City Club is no stranger to speakers saying the quiet part out loud. In fact, it is encouraged. The culture of raw honesty combined with civil and civic dialogue has created some of the most memorable moments in City Club history. Today, we are keeping with this tradition. And what it is a privilege it is to hear from Vu Le, the writer of the globally popular and viral blog, NonprofitAF. I can't say the word. Vu is wildly known for his irreverent sense of humor, no BS approach, and yes, his love of unicorns. In the audience today, we have many magical unicorns. Vu has uniquely mastered the use of his satirical approach that calls out the common and quiet frustrations of nonprofit professionals. While reading his work, you can simultaneously feel attacked and validated. If you know, you know. But that is what makes Vu's work a breath of fresh air and required reading for anyone who wants to kick the status quo. In his latest book, Reimagining Nonprofits and Philanthropy, Vu Le goes where many dare not. It's a guide for nonprofit leaders, professionals, and donors seeking to completely reimagine the way nonprofits make impact. Each chapter dives into a specific area of work, fundraising, board management, hiring, for example. It analyzes the challenges for each and provides concrete solutions for change. In addition to his titles of author and blogger, Vu Le is the former executive director of RVC, a nonprofit in Seattle that promotes social justice by supporting leaders of color, strengthening organizations led by communities of color, and fostering collaboration amongst diverse communities. Moderating the conversation is my friend Emily Campbell, President and CEO of the Center for Community Solutions, a nonpartisan nonprofit policy and research think tank focused on health, social, and economic conditions. A reminder for our live stream audience. If you have a question during the Q&A portion of the forum, you're welcome to join us in this conversation. Text your questions to 330-541-5794, and the City Club staff will try to work it into the program. Now, members and friends of the City Club of Cleveland, please join me in welcoming Vu Le and Emily Campbell. Emily.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you to so many of you being here. I think this might be the hottest ticket in Cleveland this afternoon, because I was getting texts from people this morning asking if I could get them a seat. And want to say hello. We understand that there are some watch parties in the Mahoning Valley and across Greater Cleveland tuning in on our live stream, so thank you, Vu, for being here. And as a reminder to those watching live, please feel welcome to text your questions, and then they'll be incorporated in the second part of the program. But we're delighted, Vu, that you have come to Cleveland at this moment when there are so many pressures facing nonprofits and philanthropy, and it feels like a time where we need to do some things different and have some change. You've been a writer for a long time with your very successful blog. Why a book, and why now?
Thank you, Emily. Thank you so much, the City Club of Cleveland, for inviting me. I just thought I'd bring a little bit of West Coast glamour to you all right now, all right, with the jeans and the t-shirt. Also, someone gave me a ticket to a copy of my own book, so I'm so excited. So, thank you. I can finally get a copy of it. So, thank you. It's just really great to see you all here. So why a book right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've been writing this blog, NonprofitAF, which stands for Nonprofit and Fearless. Yeah. So for a long time now, I've written over 600 blog posts, and that's overwhelming for a lot of people. So I thought I would just organize it into a nice little thing people can just read, right? But also, it's because after like years of doing this work for a long time, I see that our sector is full of brilliant people. We're just like brilliant, amazing people. I think there are, in one of the chapters, the first one called A Love Letter to Nonprofit and Philanthropy, I'm talking about how our sector is like air, whereas other sectors are like food, and people, they see food, they appreciate food, they take pictures of food and call themselves foodies. But the work that most people do in this work here is like air, and no one appreciates air until they really need it, because it's oftentimes invisible. And that's what you do every single day. You allow our communities to breathe. And I just really want to solidify that in a book. But also, it's because you don't get taken seriously when you have a blog called NonprofitAF. So I had to write a book with a very boring title and a very plain cover.
A serious cover.
Yes, with a serious
This is
cover.
a serious book.
I had to fight to get this paint wash thing added. I don't even know what it stands for. It's just like, can we just add something to make it exciting? Yeah. So, anyways, I wanted to be taken seriously now, everyone.
Successful author.
Yes.
So one of the things that you've written about on the blog and you write about in the book are the 9 horsemen of the nonprofit and philanthropic ineffectiveness. One of my least favorite, I was going to say favorite, but it's least favorite because I feel seen, is toxic intellectualism. It hits home as a leader of a nonprofit, nonpartisan policy and research center think tank. You write about how we can't white paper our way out of problems, and that summits lead to white papers and theories of change, and sticky dots that lead to more summits and more white papers and more theories of change and more sticky dots. Can you talk to us a little bit about toxic intellectualism in the sector in particular, and what we need to do differently, or what we need to think about differently?
Yeah, we love thinking here in this sector, right? And we've convinced ourselves that if we just have more meetings and do more research and more summits and stuff, that we're actually making progress on many of these challenges. Now, this is not to say that this is not important. It absolutely is. We do need our researchers. We need to be planful in the work that we do. But the pendulum has swung way too far towards that end. I always joke that if you're in Seattle and you're walking down a dark alley at night and you feel like someone's following you, it's probably someone trying to invite you to a summit or a listening session. Okay? Right. It's like, hey buddy, come to this summit on equity. We got some sticky dots for you. You know, you can put all your dots in different priorities, or you can put them all in one priorities or whatever. You know? And I don't know, like it's not working. I kind of liken us to we're like the Avengers. You know, you all see Marvel's The Avengers, right? Or just the cool people.
It was filmed here.
Right. But in the Avengers, there's this supervillain called Thanos who's just out there trying to wipe out half the universe. He's actually succeeded in his plans, right? And all these superheroes have to assemble to fight and to undo the damage he has caused. And I can imagine that we're like that. We're like the superheroes. But if Marvel's The Avengers were like our sector right now, you would have, I don't know, like Captain Marvel saying, you know what we need to do to fight Thanos? We should spend 2 years forming a think tank to write a white paper to study who's most likely to be affected by Thanos. And then 2 years later, they release a white paper. It's like, guess what, everyone? It's people of color and women of color and disabled people and trans people who have been most affected. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Let's have a summit on this white paper. Right? Meanwhile, like Iron Man's like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna give out 5% of my money to fight Thanos, because I'm saving 95% of my endowment to fight future Thanoses. And then, of course, there's Doctor Strange, who's like, you know what? Can we not say that we're fighting Thanos? Like, can we just meet Thanos in the middle? Like, can we? Like, this is our sector right now, and we use toxic intellectualizing as a way to make us feel like we're actually doing something. When I think it can be very dangerous because we become complacent when we think that we're actually doing good work.
So, what's another of the 9 horsemen that you like to share about or talk about?
I think we have to acknowledge white moderation, right? This is probably one of the biggest things that we have to address. Dr. King, from his letter from Birmingham jail, wrote that the biggest threats to justice are not like the overt racists out there marching and burning crosses. It's like the white moderate, who are very nice people who stand on the side and say, I believe in your vision, but can you be nicer about it? Can you wait for your time? Can you be more practical? Can you not cuss so much on stage at the city club or whatever, like. And I was talking about fascism on a webinar just a few weeks ago, and someone was like, Vu, I really like what you said, but like, did you have to use the F word all the time? It's like the only F word we need to worry about right now is fascism, right? But our sector has become one giant white moderate sector. That's of very nice people who believe that if we just continue addressing the symptoms of injustice and being nice and hope that other people will eventually realize things and be nice too. And that has not been working. I think we have to have some different strategies here. We need to reimagine what's possible and do things differently.
Yeah, so let's talk about one way to reimagine. And one of the things that you spend some time in the book writing about are the lessons that progressive movements can learn from conservative movements. And seeing the wild success of conservative movements in our country, what are some of those things, or what are some of those lessons that we need to borrow and start right now working on to think about changing the tide of where some things are heading in this country?
Absolutely. Well, there's several different things. With philanthropists, with funders, for example, conservative funders fund 10, 20 years at a time, right? On the left side, we are lucky. We fall to the ground, kissing the ground. In gratitude, we get a 3-year grant, right? Whereas they get 20 years at a time. So they're able to plan and dream and work 20 years at a time. I'm not saying this. This is from the Sally Covington report that came out like 30 years ago, where she studied the differences between progressive and conservative funders. And they fund for decades at a time. They also engage in politics. They will fund political candidates. They will fund political campaigns. They protect and they lift up cultural warriors. That's why we can all name like 20 or so conservative right-wing pundits out there. And who do we have on the left? We have some brilliant people, but they don't get $10 million at a time like Charlie Kirk was getting. Like, who are our cultural warriors? They are burning out because funders refuse to fund them. On the left, we only think of our leaders as batteries to power organizations. Whereas on the right, they think of leaders as the vanguards of all the movements of ideas, and that's how. So cultural warriors, they fund institutions. Where is our Heritage Foundation? Where's our equivalent of the Heritage Foundation? Where's our equivalent of the Cato Institute? Where we don't have those? The Federalist Society, the Heritage Foundation, they have been responsible for having all of these right-wing Supreme Court justices, to the point they've been so effective that Leonard Leo just got like $1.6 billion from a billionaire to make it even more conservative, to get all the courts across every single level to be right-wing. They got like, who among us, where is our billionaires giving billions of dollars to shape the court system to be progressive? We do not have that. They also control the media, right? They have Fox News. They put out 5 times more content than progressives. Like if I had billions of dollars right now, I would buy up Fox News. I would buy up Sinclair Network. This would solve a lot of the problems here. We don't have that. The Onion tried to buy up InfoWars, and that was brilliant. We should have supported, like if I had a lot of money, I would have supported that campaign to buy up InfoWars. But we refused to do that. So we have to engage in politics, we have to fund a cultural war, we have to build institutions, we have to control the narratives. That's kind of what we have to do. But also, I think in many ways we've lost our imagination. We've been so focused on just like responding to the fires instead of figuring out like what is the society we're trying to build together here. I start thinking about the Overton window. Some of you may know this, but the Overton window is basically the range of ideas that the public will accept at any given time. A while ago, like marriage equality was not in this window, but the window has moved now so that now marriage equality is just very, like most people would accept marriage equality, right? I hope. Whereas in the past it wasn't. And conservative movements have been really good at moving this window towards some really scary, terrifying ideas, like incarcerating, like institutionalizing trans people. I mean, they float that, killing homeless people. They have moved this window towards that. Meanwhile, we're still on the defensive. We need to move this window by becoming unapologetically progressive in our values. And by that, I mean things like $35 minimum wage. Right? If we just all fight for $35 minimum wage, then $15 is not going to seem so threatening, right? If we start saying we're going to ban cars in every major city and have free public transportation that's robust, that's going to scare some people. But then maybe when we start having a little bit of more public transportation, it would seem reasonable. If we start fighting to give rivers and forests their own human rights, the way that we have given corporations, the way Citizens United has given corporations, why not a river? Why not a forest? We need to start shifting towards like be unapologetic in the society that we're thinking. It should not be controversial to say that we want universal, healthcare for everyone. That is the least controversial thing ever. And yet we're still defensive about that? Like, come on.
There's a lot there.
Yeah.
Well, your shirt says disruption is essential, so that's why we're here today. So, thinking about some of that, I know I am, and a lot of us in this room, we're tired. It's been a rough year. And some of the things that you've talked about, the backlash against even things that are very reasonable. I'm thinking specifically of some of our efforts to include everyone or recognize that there should be diversity of thought. The DEI movement, some of the anti-trans movements have been real challenges, and it feels extra difficult in 2025 to move even further. But can you talk a little bit about some of the backlash we're seeing, and how do we keep going when we're facing those things?
Yeah, it has been challenging. I feel like in some ways, because people are so traumatized and stressed out and constantly dealing with fires all the time, that sometimes we forget who our targets should be, We start attacking one another all the time. I get attacked all the time. I get tons of hate mail and messages about stuff. And sometimes it's hurtful when it's people we are aligned on most things. And I'm a human being, I make mistakes too. I almost switched to Substack until people got mad at me and they were like, how dare you switch to Substack? How do you even think about switching to Substack? It platforms Nazis and all this stuff. And I was like, I had no idea. I was busy watching Dairy Girls to keep myself. I was like, I'm very stressed out. And Dairy Girls is what I watch over and over again. Okay, watch Dairy Girls on there. It's really great. Okay. So there's only so much. We're not going to be perfect. So again, we need to focus on when we're on the same side. Let's give one another grace here, right? And save our ire for other people. At the same time, I do want to caution us regarding like the diversity of thought thing, because sometimes that is a way to like for people to platform horrible ideas, to give platforms to some just awful. I mean, I think there's some disagreements we can have, right? But there's certain things that we just do not argue about. Like, I don't want to be on stage arguing with someone about the humanity of trans people.
Right.
That should never even be something we discuss. I was talking to a colleague, a black woman, who told me that she was invited to a debate about whether racism is real. And I don't think we should be entertaining these types of conversations, right? Racism is real. There's no, we can have debates about how do we actually address it, right? This is what, like, the both siding of things has been awful, and why we have so many problems that we have, like with the climate change, right? You bring on someone to talk about climate change, you bring someone a climate change denier. That's not diversity of thought, that's just platforming ignorance here. So we also need to be thoughtful about that too. What was your question?
You answered it, I'm sure. There's an answer in there somewhere. No,
how do we keep going? I don't know. How do you keep going?
I don't know. Talking to you.
Look, I think we have to keep going because
Malcolm in the Middle is mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great show, and Bryan Cranston is just so brilliant. How do we keep going? I mean, I think this is something that we have all been thinking about, and over the past few years, I just feel like that arc of the moral universe, right? We are supposed to have faith that it bends towards justice. It's been like a concave arc now. It's going reverse. Like, that's what it's been feeling like. And so I know how stressed out everyone has been. But I do want to remind us all, and to remind myself, that I think in many ways what we're seeing right now is because what we have been doing has been working. What we've been doing, fighting for a just and equitable world, has been working. And that's why the people who are against it have been so strong, to push back against it. Right? I mean, and people every single day are resisting. Every day. We see it in Portland, driving, we see it in Chicago, Portland, New York. Everyone is out there pushing back, resisting, driving out ICE, supporting one another. In Portland, Heretics Coffee, it's like this little small town coffee shop, just decided we're gonna give you breakfast if you lost your SNAP benefits. And we're just gonna keep doing this until we run out of business, and we just run out of money, and we're just gonna close. And it was so moving to see communities doing that for one another. And guess what? In a few days, they raised $86,000. They were getting tiny amounts of money even from other countries, right? So I think fascism wants us to feel like we're alone, that there is no community, that we're all just in our own little bubble. But that's not true. There's tons of community out there. Like, fascism is not going to destroy community, because we are way stronger than fascists. Like, people are supporting one another. I know things are scary with the SNAP cuts being out there, but people are supporting one another. There's mutual aid groups that's forming. People are resisting. They're fighting back. And we don't see in the news because, the news now is being controlled by a lot of right-wing forces. We don't see all the amazing things that's happening in Nepal, in Malaysia. Right now, they're holding just thousands of people are out there protesting. So people are fighting and building community. And we're going to outlast everything that's going on right now.
So let's... Thinking about community and the community that we're sitting in today here in Cleveland, this is a legacy city. It is an old money city. We are home to the original community foundation in the country, the Cleveland Foundation. Have settlement houses going back to the 1800s that are continuing to operate here today. And I would say one of the challenges that we face here in philanthropy and nonprofit in Cleveland is the idea of nostalgia and looking to recreate a world that never actually existed and not being able to look at what's right in front of our faces. Can you talk a little bit about movements and changes in thinking and kind of letting go of the past or of what isn't working and moving forward in the work? And what would you say to Cleveland as a legacy city that's still the second poorest large city in the country, year after year?
Nostalgia, I agree. We were talking about the horsemen of nonprofit and philanthropic ineffectiveness, and you mentioned like maybe the 10th one.
Maybe that's the 10th one.
Maybe that's the 10th one. Nostalgia can be really dangerous, right? I mean, this is what's been driving the MAGA movement, right? Make America Great Again.
Right.
Right, because they have this nostalgia for a time, that in many ways was really awful for a lot of people. Right, they want to move back to that. Now, yeah, I mean, over here we still have that. We have legacy organizations. We have a lot of stuff that's just traditions that we pass down because they're comforting, And I'm not talking about theoretical. I'm talking like I don't know, like Robert's rules. Who's Robert? Why are we still using his rules? Right? Like, who is this man? This is like Henry Martin Robert. He was a U.S. Army officer.
So you know who Robert is.
I do, because I had to research this guy, because it's like, why are we using Robert's rule? Henry Martin Robert, this dude who in like 1876 or something took the U.S. Congress parliamentary procedure and then wrote it into a book. So this is literally 145 years ago. And we're still using this. We have a lot of like nostalgia. We have a lot of things that we pass down that we don't need to. There's no legal requirement. Robert's rules like Taco Tuesday, okay? It's a suggestion. You can have tacos on Wednesday. You can have teriyaki on Tuesday. That's fine. That still alliterates. But like so many things, we have to get out of the nostalgia. Because the nostalgia breeds this sort of sense of tradition, the sense that we've always done it this way, right? And think about like how we do fundraising, for example. I can't stand the way we do fundraising. This idea that we need to put, there's a whole chapter, it's probably my favorite chapter. But like we've been trained to put funders and donors in the center on a pedestal. And we've been trained to make them feel like heroes and saviors. And we've been trained to be like, you need to use the word you 50 times in every appeal letter. You did this. Because of you, our community is stronger. And I kind of liken this to, I don't know, like husband-centered marriages. Right? Like I've been a husband before, and I would love it every single time I did the dishes or something. Like my partner writes me a handwritten thank you note. Like, dear Vu, you did it. Because you washed the dishes today, our family is stronger. Our community is better because of you. Please come to this exclusive wine and cheese event for amazing husbands like you. Like, I would love that. And I'd be more likely to do the dishes. But is that a good marriage? No. That's not a partnership, right? And it's preventing some deeper conversations from happening. Like about the origin of wealth, where a lot of wealth in this country comes from slavery, stolen indigenous land, worker exploitation, environmental degradation, and tax avoidance. And we don't talk to,
Preach it.
when we don't talk to our donors and our funders about this. And I think in many ways we're underestimating many of our donors and funders who are in some ways way ahead of us. Like I was writing about this heiress in Austria, I think, who got like several million or 100 million, something $1 million. And she decided like, why should I have this money? I didn't do anything except be born. Why am I getting $100 million? And she decided to use this money to actually help change the tax code so that people don't get this much money in the first place. And then the rest of the money she's actually allocating to like the public to determine what to do with that, right? We need to start thinking and reimagining this and talking to our donors. There are examples of that in the book where, like, there's one of my friends who attended a giving circle where she was asked to examine where her family's wealth comes from, and she discovered that it came from stolen indigenous land. And she decided right then, after some thinking about it, that when she gets her inheritance, she's going to give 100% of this back to the Native community. Like, this is justice. This is what fundraising should look like for us. Right, but we haven't been doing that because we've been trained a certain way because of nostalgia, because of tradition, and we need to move across. We need to change and do things differently, not just with fundraising, but with boards, with advocacy, with everything that we've been doing.
So we're going to turn to audience questions in just a moment, but one sort of final thing while I still have the microphone. What brings you hope these days?
I mean, this sounds really corny, but I feel like you all bring me hope. I mean, like, this work is so difficult. It is so difficult. I watched the show Chopped, And really, like, the show Chopped is like a bunch of, all these contestants are given baskets of random-ass ingredients, okay? And they have to make meals out of them. So here's a trout and some marshmallows, make dessert, whatever. And they managed to do that. And it reminds me of our sector. It's like, here's a computer that's 12 years old and $5,000 you can only spend on paper clips on Tuesday. And 500 people who hate you on the internet for no reason. Go end homelessness. And yet, you manage to go and do things that's so amazing every single day. You're like the air that allows our communities to breathe, I mentioned. And again, no one appreciates air because they don't see it. They don't see your work, the work that you do every single day. And it takes a toll. I think that we don't talk about the toll that it takes. We don't talk about like how many of us don't have good health insurance or how many of us can't retire. We've been, the Beanie Babies are not going to pan out. No. I don't know. Right? What are we going to do? We have to, exotic marigold hotel some together. Like the sacrifices that this work takes, we don't talk about it. But you do it every single day. And I feel like, I'm just so grateful. Also because my family arrived to the United States and, it was a while ago we landed in Philadelphia and we lost like our sense of community and we did not know if we would ever see our families again. And it was all these nonprofits that stepped in and helped me and my family. They brought us food and they brought us warm clothing that we didn't have. But I think the most important thing that they did was they restored a sense of hope and community to us that we never thought we would ever feel again. That's what you do every single day for people. And the work that you do is not seen. I don't know any of these organizations that helped my family when we arrived. I can't go back to Philly and thank them because I have no idea who they are. Or I would tell them that because of what they did for me and my family, it inspired me to go and get my master's in social work so I could pay it forward. Like, I'm one of these ripples that people create. You create ripples every single day that you may never see. So that's what gives me hope, is that there are people like you out in the world who continue to do this work despite relentless, unyielding barriers all the time. You continue to do this work. Thank you.
Well, we are about to start audience Q&A. I could keep going, but we'll let other people ask too. For our live stream audience, including our watch parties across the region, I'm Emily Campbell, CEO for the Center for Community Solutions and moderator of today's conversation. We are joined by Vu Le, founder of the blog NonprofitAF and author of Reimagining Nonprofits and Philanthropy, Unlocking the Full Potential of a Vital and Complex Sector. That is a serious title for an... It's not that serious book. It is a serious book, but there's
It was originally
light in
burning
there.
this shit down, but
Yeah, right.
The
It might have
publishers
sold
didn't
to
like
a different
it.
audience.
Yeah.
We welcome questions from everyone, City Club members, guests, and those joining via our live stream at cityclub.org. If you'd like to text a question, please text it to 330-541-5794, and City Club staff will try to work it into the program. A reminder to keep your questions short, to the point, and ending with a question mark, so that we can get to as many questions as possible. May we have the first question, please?
Absolutely. So we have a text question to start. We're a small nonprofit working to rebuild capacity after a major funding loss. How can we stay focused on real community impact when funders and partners value short-term, flashy metrics over slow, meaningful progress?
Oh, yeah. I think we need to organize a bit here. Yeah, we need to organize. Like, we have lost the ability to organize. I think something Jan Masaoka from Cal Nonprofit said that really stuck with me is that we've been so professionalized now that we're able to write a theory of change, a logic model, a white paper, and we've lost the ability to get like 50 people to a town hall meeting, right? Which is how we get change to happen. We have to start organizing. In Seattle, like 180 executive directors got together and wrote an open letter to our funders and said, look, our communities are really hurting because of COVID. You need to give out, you need to double the amount of money you're giving out immediately. And it needs to be multi-year general operating dollars.
My God.
My God. Yes, and you need to sign.
Multi-year general operating dollars. It's an acronym.
Yeah. That's one of my proudest accomplishments, is that acronym. And the letter asked these funders to sign this pledge saying that they were going to do that. And you know what? Several of the funders did do that. They signed the pledge and they did double the amount of money that they're giving out. Like, we have to organize better, but in order for us to do that, we have to get out of this mindset. We have so many mindsets. We have the mindset, for example, that there's only so much money to go around. That is wrong. There's like $1.6 trillion sitting in foundation endowments and donor advice funds right now. What are people saving for? We're saving for a rainy day when there's a monsoon right now. There's a hurricane in our community right now. What are you saving for? Like, to all the funders that are out there who are still squirreling money away, hoarding money in their endowments, why? Your endowments will mean nothing if we become a totalitarian state here. Right? We need to fight this with everything that we have here. So, and the rest of us, we need to be angrier. We can't just be like, okay, yeah, and believe things when people say stuff like, there's only so much money to go around. No. Call out the bullshit for what it is.
Next question.
Hello. Our next question is a test question. As nonprofit leaders, we are not supposed to be political. How can we fight the fascism while obeying that fight?
Who said we shouldn't be political? We need to get out of that mindset. The right has been very political, and they have set up organizations, nonprofit organizations, that are very political. We have vehicles for us to be political. We have 501c4s and PACs and stuff. We just refuse to fund them. Funders refuse to fund them. That's why 501c4s on the left have been struggling. So no, get out of this mindset that we cannot be political. 501c3s should not be endorsing political candidates. Absolutely, yes. But right now, we've reached a point where we think anything that the right doesn't like means we're being political, right? If we start fighting for abortion rights, that's political. It is not political to fight for abortion rights. We start fighting for voting rights, that's political. No, it's not. Every single nonprofit should be involved in voting rights. Like, this is... So let's be very clear about what is political and what is not. And of the thing that is actually political, including endorsing political candidates, we need to do more of that too, right? I'm on the board of Progress Alliance of Washington, and we have a program called the First Miles Club, where we raise money and then give out small amounts of money to political candidates, progressive political candidates who are running their first race, who are people of color. And we only give out like $10,000, $20,000 or so to each political candidate. Of the, I think, 40 or something candidates, like 19 of them got elected. It only takes like $20,000. And some of them are like, oh my God, $20,000, this is amazing. We can actually get so much done with door knocking and signs and all of this stuff. And the budget for this program is only like $450,000 a year. We should be in the millions by now. Every community should be having programs like this. We should be supporting political candidates on the left. We should be supporting especially progressive women of color to be running in every single race and to win them. That's how we turn things around.
Our next question, please.
Hi, I once saw you speak, or I've seen you speak a couple of times to a group of grant makers. And I have been on the grant maker side and on the grant seeker side. And one of the things that struck me, and I've quoted you a million times, and I'd love for the audience to hear this analogy or an analogy that you have like it, which was you described a foundation that would give you water but no hose. and the need for, looks like you remember, but just if you could talk to, I think everybody would appreciate hearing about that sense you have of general operating and comprehensive giving.
Thank you. Yes, the metaphor is like all of you all are probably like in this sector are like firefighters trying to put out the fires of injustice. But can you imagine a firefighter when they're rushing to put out the fires, they're being stopped every 3 or 4 steps by someone asking, I want to make sure that the money I'm giving you to put out the fire is being spent on the water, not the hose. What is your hose to water ratio? And all of us have been trained to be like, oh, no, don't worry. We found someone else to pay for the hose. You're only paying for the water. We're spending no more than 15% on the hose, all right? We're not, don't worry about that. No. Our response should be, there's a fire. You need to get the hell out of my way. Okay? We don't have time for this. This is why we keep losing here. It's because we keep paying attention to really inane questions and stuff about this. With everything that's been going on and with all the research around how effective multi-year general operating funds are, any funder that is still giving restricted funds, you are basically the climate change denying anti-vaxxers of our sector. All funding should be multi-year general operating dollars. My God.
There's a lot more writing about fires in the book as well, and who's setting the fires, and some of those things. All right, next question.
We have another text question. It says, Vu, you discussed the strength of the conservatives with supporting their causes with a ton of money. How do we mobilize the progressive movement to gain the same long-term power that the conservatives have built?
Yeah. Sometimes I get asked, like, Vu, it seems like you're preaching to the choir, you know? In some ways, that's true. But really, we're not a very good choir. Okay? I think that choirs, like, they sing the same song at the same time, right? And they know their parts and all this stuff. No, we are a very disorganized choir because we're not singing, we're not on message here. So, I mean, we're talking about, like, multi-year general operating dollars and general operating funds. I still see some of y'all on your website saying stuff like 95% of every cent you give us go to programs, direct services or whatever, you know. Like that is not, you're not part of the choir. Like what song are you singing? So we need to do a much better job getting our messages together and our strategies together. But we've been like trained in this, we've had this learned helplessness here. We had this learned helplessness and of just the way things are. And we start thinking about, well, how do we make things slightly less crappy than before? Versus like, how do we reimagine things and do things completely differently? Here's an example. I was at another event, and someone was like, Vu, every year around this time, around the holidays, the local newspaper publishes a list of the 10 nonprofits with the highest overhead rate. Highest overhead rate. As a way to publicly shame these nonprofits. And we're so afraid that we're going to end up on this list. Like, what do we do? And everyone was like, well, you know, you should think about maybe using Excel to like allocate more funding to programming. And then after like several minutes of this, someone actually stops and says, can you all just get together and write an op-ed to this newspaper and saying how shitty that is? That's not helpful. Fight back. So the choir has not been fighting back. The choir has not been singing the right song here. So how do we actually move people? Like we need to get our thinking out of the sort of like the nostalgia, the way things have always been. And we need to be okay with burning some bridges. We've got to be okay with like losing some funders and some donors who are not aligned. We've got to be okay with organizing and acting differently.
Yeah, you quote in the book, may the bridges we burn light the way. Next question.
I can still remember the first time I was at a donor gala working in this, and I didn't understand how place settings worked because I didn't grow up that way. And I always think about the way that we make it possible for emerging professionals, for those of us who have grown up trying to solve the problems, to belong in the space, because it's tricky when you're dealing with philanthropy and wealth. So, can you just speak to those of us in the room or those of us listening who are emerging, young, rising professionals in this space and in this sector?
Yeah, I really appreciate the emerging leaders. I used to be one of y'all. Then I got invited to be an elder on a podcast.
You arrived.
Like, boo. Right, exactly. We want to capture the wisdom of our elders before you all pass away. I don't know. Look, I think I can only imagine how frustrating it can be to be a young leader in this space and dealing with the traditions and the nostalgia and everything and fighting against the currents, of people who are sticking there, refusing to retire sometimes, the founders. And it's hard when you try to make change and you just face this wall all the time. It's frustrating. But I would say one is we really need you, right? And for you to really understand your power and the fresh perspective you bring, we really need that. Because, you have not been entrenched in a lot of this propaganda and a lot of these terrible habits that have been passed down from generation to generation. So it's not an uphill battle, but it's really important. The other thing is for you to keep going. I kind of liken it in the book to feeding toddlers vegetables. They hate it. But science says that it takes 8 to 12 exposures for a toddler to like a new vegetable or a new type of food. All right? And I tested this out by feeding Brussels sprouts to my kids over and over and over again in different permutations of it. And now they love Brussels sprouts. Deep fried, though. But no balsamic glaze. A lot of our work, a lot of the work of young people, you are trying to feed the Brussels sprouts of equity to toddlers in power. Okay. And you will have to try different ways and different permutations, the way you cook the message. And maybe sometimes you're tired. You just want to pass the spoon to someone else. But the work that you're doing is very important, right? You may think, I didn't make any change, but no. You provide the 5th helping to this person who may need that. I know it's exhausting, but oftentimes that's how change happens. And sometimes you got to be okay with okay, I tried my best to feed the Brussels sprouts and it's not working. And you go and you do something else, right? But we need you in the sector, and please keep going. You have more power than you probably think, more power and influence than you think.
Thank you. Next question.
Thank you, Emily and Fu, for coming. So we operate in a nonprofit world in a capitalist society. And the venture capital community will invest millions of dollars and expect a return on maybe 5%. Yet funders in the nonprofit world are expecting to fund successes. They want to be assured that they're funding a successful operation. How can we get the funding community to think more like venture capitalists and be willing to invest in new ideas that may fail, even though they're trying to make a difference?
Yeah. First of all, we all need to restore our imagination and the audacity of ambition here. We've lost it because we've been forced into survival mode for so long that we've lost our ability to imagine and to be ambitious. I talk about Juicero. Who's heard of Juicero? Yes. Juicero came from Silicon Valley. It was a Wi-Fi connected juicing machine. Now think about this. A Wi-Fi connected juicing machine. It was $700. You buy these proprietary packets of cut up fruit and vegetables. You subscribe to it for $7 each, and you place this packet into this machine, and it squeezes out 1 glass of juice for $7. It was supposed to disrupt the juicing industry. Bloomberg did an investigation where they took the packets and squeezed them by hand and got almost the same amount of juice, but faster. So they wrote about this, and Juicero went bankrupt. But before they did, they were boasting that they had $125 million in venture capital. They had 50 full-time engineers working to design this Wi-Fi connected juicing machine, right? So this is a great lesson for us because while they're doing that, Some of you are like, can we please get $4,000 to end poverty? Yes, we'll give you $1,000 this year.
Yes.
That you only spend on paper clips on Tuesdays. Yes, we'll write your handwritten thank you note. Here you go. We need to restore the sense of audacity here, right? We cannot ask the funders when we ourselves are so just complacent and deferential and thinking that, yeah, it's too much if we ask $50,000. No, it's not. All right? I want everyone here to think like Juicero. I want you to add like a 0 or 2 to your asks now. Okay? Because chances are your work is more important than a Wi-Fi connected juicing machine. Whenever you doubt yourself, think about Juicero. Have the audacity of a Wi-Fi connected juicing machine. Right? If that's the only thing you take from this conversation, have the audacity of a Wi-Fi connected juicing machine. And that's where it starts. Now, once we have that framework, then I think we can start pushing our funders to think this way too, because until we ourselves believe that, I don't know how we're going to get other people to believe that, right? And then we need to organize. We need to organize, and I think in many ways, our funders we lie to our funders a lot. We've been trained to lie to funders and donors. They're like, how is everything going? Everything is good, you know. We had some transition as staff move on. Like, no, what you're saying is, oh my God, everything is on fire. Like, we have like 1 month of cash flow. You know, like, we are not honest with our funders and donors. We need to be honest. We actually have this conversation. We have meaningful conversation with our donors and saying, look, we really need you to be a partner in here. What we're doing now is really vital. I think about the arts organizations right now who have always been like, oh my gosh, you know, like, everything is so urgent. Like, do we people need the arts? Yes, we need the arts to fight fascism. Okay? So everyone who's doing important work, the food pantries, you are vital right now because of SNAP cuts and everything. Mm-hmm. Those of you on the arts, you are just as important because you are saving people from like fascism. Because this is what we need. We need the imaginations of artists to imagine a better world. That's why fascists hate arts and the artists, and you know? So your work is really vital. So when you go to a funder, don't just say, oh yeah, we're applying for $5,000, you know, to support these 3 artists and or whatever. No, we're asking for $5 million to fight fascism.
So we have another text question. There is a sea of change of leadership in Cleveland right now. What advice do you have for emerging nonprofit leaders?
Didn't we just have that question?
Now we're like, got a little gray.
Yeah.
We're not yet elders.
Yeah, well, there's something about leading from the middle here that people have. I don't know. I think sometimes, again, we become white moderates as we move on and as we move up. We become more and more protective. One of the horsemen is like self-preservation here. I think we all have to acknowledge, in many ways, that our livelihoods depend on the existence of inequity, so that we can get paid to fight it. Right? So for those of us who are emerging leaders, who are doing this work, it's really important to protect ourselves from like becoming the things that we fought against when we were, younger in our careers here.
I'll say, I was meeting with a state legislator who said, why do you want me to do this? It'll just put some of your partners out of business if we feed people, or whatever it was. I said, great, sounds great, please do. Put us out of business, can't wait to see you do it.
Yes, I think we all need to have that framework. Like, we all need to sunset, not just a few foundations, the brilliant foundations that are thinking about sunsetting. I really appreciate the foundations who are like, you know what, things are very dire right now. We're gonna spend down, and we're gonna go fight with everything that we got. So thank you for doing that. But all of us need to think this way. All of us need to think about how do we put ourselves out of business. I think about this, and it's really tempting. Like, I remember a foundation calling me up. It was like, Vu, can we hire you for 6 months, and pay you to lead us through a process where we can figure out how we give money to people, communities of color-led organizations better. And at the same time, I was like, ooh, that's probably like $20,000, 6 months, blah, blah. And I was like, and then I snapped out of it. And I was like, actually, no. Why are you doing? Just give out money to communities of color-led organizations. Why are you paying me and wasting 6 months for this? Right? And I was like, I don't want to do this, and you shouldn't hire anyone else to do this either. Just give out more money. And they're like, oh, we can just do that? I was like, yes, do it tomorrow.
Done.
Yes. And to their credit, a month later, they announced that they were going to have like a special funding just for Black and Indigenous-led organizations to apply to. Like, that's how it should be. So all of us have to figure, like, we're so used to operating a certain way that we need to like snap back and think, wow, do I want to be complicit in this right now? Do I want to let my sense of self-protection, get in the way of doing what is right?
Great. Next question.
So here we are at year end, and we're now getting all this information from you that's making at least me feel like I did everything in preparation wrong. My question is, before I make this very difficult phone call to my executive director on the way home, we, kind of going along with what you said before, we have created these numbers based on, like, I don't even know where they came from. I can't tell you where they came from, but like, it should be 10 to 15% more than you raised last year, and that should be the target goal. But then I hear you saying, like, that should not be the target goal. The target goal should be like meeting what the need is. So should now I go from $57,000 goal to $250,000 goal? I don't have a problem with this, but I am going to have to convince my executive director in this 30-minute drive home why I should do this. Is that what you would recommend? Like, because I would be literally burning it all down. And I just started in February. I don't know if I should be the one to light the match.
Thank you so much. No, I don't want to make anyone feel bad.
No.
First of all, this work is
No.
really important. We have to be okay, as you said, sir. We got to be okay with failure. Like the Silicon Valley and the startups, they are halal failure. Look at Pet.com and Circuit City and Radio Shack. Like all these, Google Glass or whatever. They're just allowed to fail. We are working on things that are, like, in many ways so much harder. Mm-hmm. We should be allowed to fail too. All right? Accept that. So yeah, I don't know your situation there, but I want us, that's what, like the imagination that we have here, we need to restore. We've got to be okay with thinking about what is the society we're trying to create. Incrementalism is one of the horsemen of ineffectiveness here. All right? We think about, like, how do we do things 10% better every year? Like, and every year after that, we're not going to reach our goal. We've got to think about, like, how do we actually address this problem, and so that we are out of business and then work our way backwards. That's something I learned from Hildy Gottlieb from Creating the Future, who's quoted in here. Let's think about the future we want to create and work backwards, and what do we need to do there. Thank you.
Thank you to Vu Lei and Emily Campbell for joining us today at the City Club. Forums like this one are made possible thanks to generous support from individuals like you. You can learn more about how to become a guardian of free speech at cityclub.org. Today's forum is part of the City Club's Authors and Conversation series, presented in partnership with Cuyahoga Arts and Culture and Cuyahoga County Public Library. Thank you as well to our friends at Max Books for providing on-site sales of Vu's book. Please buy Vu's books so the next one has color on the cover. Today's forum is the Eugene H. Friedheim Lecture, presented with the Center for Community Solutions in memory of Eugene Friedheim. Friedheim was a prominent Cleveland attorney who, together with his wife Mina, was active in a number of Cleveland charitable organizations. He saw the Center for Community Solutions as having a key role as a planner and community convener. This lecture fund was established by his family and friends to extend humanitarian influence into the future. The City Club would like to welcome guests at the tables hosted by the Center for Community Solutions, the Char and Chuck Fowler Family Foundation, the Cleveland Foundation, Cuyahoga County Human Services Chamber, Friends of Anita Cook, Giving Insight, Grants Plus, Near West Theater, Ohio Guidestone, Positive Education Program, and the Ween Foundation. Coming up this Friday, October 31st, the City Club will host its 2025 annual meeting. Thompson Hines and our very own Robin Winter Smyers will lead a conversation with biographer David Greenberg on the life of Congressman John Lewis. Thank you once again to Vu Le and Emily Campbell, and to our friends and members of the City Club. I'm Lita Obertaz. This forum is now adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.
The ideas expressed in City Club forums are those of the speakers and not of the City Club of Cleveland, IdeaStream Public Media, or their sponsors. Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream Public Media are made possible by PNC and the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, Incorporated.